What do you think happens when we die, Keanu Reeves?
I know that the ones who love us will miss us.
The saddest and at the same time the kindest actor in Hollywood. The inimitable devil's advocate and funny Ted. The breathtaking Keanu Reeves is the hero of today's video on the Biographer channel.
Why did Al Pacino dislike the actor? Why was Keanu so close to death several times, and what sacrifices did he have to make for the sake of taking part in The Matrix? You will find it out very soon.
But before that, click on the subscribe button and on the bell to be the first to know about the release of new video biographies of your favorite celebrities. Have you pressed the button? Anyway, you're breathtaking. Enjoy the video.
Keanu Charles Reeves was born on September 2, 1964 in the capital of Lebanon, Beirut. His mother, Patricia Bond, was a showgirl, and his father, Samuel Reeves, was a geologist. Keanu owes his spectacular appearance to Hawaiian and Portuguese roots of his father and English and Irish roots of his mother. Such an unusual name of the boy came from the Hawaiian language and translates "cool breeze over the mountains." Keanu Reeves' father wasn't just a simple man. He didn't even get higher education. Moreover, he received a high school diploma during his imprisonment in Hawaii on charges of selling heroin at the airport. Over time, he started not only to sell substances, but also to use them. 2 years after Keanu's birth, a new member of the family, baby Kim, was born. As soon as Keanu turned 3, Samuel abandoned the family. After that, he was arrested more than once for possession and sale of drugs. Patricia could not count on his participation in the children's lives or even on alimony. At the age of 13, Reeves met his father on the island of Kauai for the first time. After that, he stopped communicating with him for many years. I didn't have a father. Perhaps I would like to have him. You feel it especially acutely when you start to grow up and you need a man's advice. I can't say that I was very worried about the inability to communicate with Sam. For me, it was a complete stranger. After the breakup, Patricia moved to Sydney in search of greener pastures, where she got a job as an assistant organizer of performances. She was paid little, and life in Australia was much more expensive than in Lebanon. The woman changed men one by one. In the end, Patricia decided to try her luck in New York. The next move was not easy for the children. The brother and sister were just getting used to Australia, and the next change of scenery was very stressful for them. But in New York, Keanu was, for the first time, behind the scenes of the theater, where Patricia got a job for a while. Little Keanu loved being part of the magical process of creating the show. In fact, children usually want to become someone whose work they see every day. The theater was home for me. We had been hanging around behind the scenes since childhood, so I simply did not have a special choice. But they didn't stay in New York for long. Keanu was 6 years old when his mother married Broadway director Paul Aaron. The family moved to Toronto. From that time, Keanu has always considered hospitable Canada to be his homeland. Originally being qualified in design, Patricia decided to start a career as a costume designer and was very successful in this. She created images of Emmylou Harris, Dolly Parton, and David Bowie. Keanu's love of cinema appeared in particular thanks to his stepfather. Paul Aaron took him to rehearsals, thanks to which the boy got acquainted with real filmmaking. Keanu was even an assistant on one of the productions that Paul was directing. I was bringing soda to Lillian Gish when Star Wars was coming out. She's like, cinema these days. It was a great honor for me. I was going to theaters and rehearsals with my stepfather when I was a kid, so I guess it's probably my tradition. Unfortunately, the marriage broke up due to Paul's infidelity less than 2 years later. Despite the breakup, the man continued to communicate with Keanu and Kim, to whom he really attached. In the future, he would still play a role in the formation of Keanu's career. A different period began in Patricia's life. A single mother worked from morning to night trying to provide her children with everything they needed. The situation was complicated by the news about Keanu's and Kim's dyslexia, which affected their school performance. Because of the ridicule and biased attitude towards Reeves, Keanu quickly became withdrawn and insecure. But as he grew up, he was able to cope with his complexes. Despite dyslexia, Keanu Reeves has been playing chess at a decent level since childhood. He even challenged adult players, charging the opponent $1 for each game. After a while, Keanu's mother remarried. Patricia's chosen one was a rock music promoter, Robert Miller. In 1976, a daughter, Karina, was born in the family. Keanu didn't really like studying. The future actor changed several schools, including the prestigious School of Performing Arts. He was flunking out of the last one for bad behavior and conflicts with teachers. In acting classes, the teachers were not particularly pleased with him. Because of them, Reeves doubted his abilities. Keanu admitted that he skipped and hated school for the sake of going to the cinema. I remember there's a beautiful, wonderful cinema in Toronto called the Bloor Street Cinema. And I remember summer nights, just like riding my bike and just going, locking my bike up and going into a movie. I didn't even know what it was, but I would just go and they had salty good popcorn and I'd just chill out. He got the opportunity to attend an international film festival while living in Toronto. Could he think that after many years, he would come there not as a spectator, but as an actor to present the films in which he starred? Reeves took part in his first production of Damn Yankees when he was 9 years old. Critics gave the musical a negative review. Not only adult actors who performed the main roles got unflattering reviews, but even little Keanu. Thereby, it greatly undermined his confidence. Soon, the guy got another hobby. It was hockey. He excelled at the game and felt confident on the ice. Teammates even nicknamed him the Wall for the fact that Keanu was a first-class goalkeeper. But at the age of 14, he was seriously injured and doctors made a diagnosis which sounded like a sentence. They stated that Keanu could no longer play. He was flunking out of another school and decided not to return there anymore. Keanu never received his certificate of maturity. Keanu moved out from his parents and started working part-time in 3 places at once, sharpening skates on the local hockey field, cutting bushes in parks, and cooking in an Italian restaurant. And that's when Paul Aaron stepped in. It was he who helped Keanu start his career in cinema, inviting him to auditions and encouraging his passion for acting. In 1983, Keanu got the main role in the musical Wolf Boy. It told about 2 teenage boys who ended up in a psychiatric hospital and fell in love. Participation in the production gave Keanu the first popularity among the locals. The people on the streets who recognized him were not always tolerant, so he often heard insults. After that, he was offered to become a correspondent for the Canadian youth TV program Going Great.
I'm sorry, Miss Vicky.
She'll forgive me.
In 1984, Keanu Reeves first appeared on television, starring in a Coca-Cola commercial.
Who's your coach? My dad.
Now, he is a great actor who is loved by millions, but the guy was happy with any small role back then. And while young Keanu and I are waiting for new offers from studios, write in the comments which films with this actor you like the most. I really want to know your opinion. With the help of Paul Aaron, Keanu got the role of Mercutio in the musical Romeo and Juliet. Critics noted his performance and that encouraged the guy. He understood that he was on the right track. After that, Keanu got small roles in the TV series Hangin' In, Heat in the Night, and Comedy Factory. Before that, he got another commercial. That time, it was Kellogg's Corn Flakes. His acting career started to gain momentum. Soon, the aspiring actor managed to get his first role in a feature film. Keanu played a hockey goalkeeper in Peter Markle's sports drama Youngblood. And although the main star of the film was Patrick Swayze, it was a good opportunity for Keanu to prove himself. In addition, his old sports skills came in handy here. After that, Reeves decided to leave his hometown and go towards his dream. With the help of his former stepfather, he received a green card and moved to Los Angeles. There, Paul persuaded a familiar agent, Erwin Stoff, to take Keanu under his wing. He considered the name of the ward too exotic, so he tried for a long time to convince Keanu to come up with some kind of nickname. The actor began to offer various crazy options, for example, Chuck Spadina, and as a result, the manager abandoned the idea.
And then I tell them that, and they're like, no. And I'm like, what's wrong with Chuck Spadina? Isn't that kind of the direction you want?
Dude, your name is almost Chuck Spadina. It's my favorite thing.
No, but then they didn't like that, so then I went.
The job was found pretty quickly. In 1986, as many as 8 projects were released with the participation of Keanu. However, we can't call all of them successful. Keanu played a young version of the hero in the Disney Studio television movie Young Again. According to the plot, a businessman wanted to become a teenager again, and his wish came true. The short film One Step Away could not be called successful. However, it gave the actor the opportunity to play the main role for the first time. In the same year, Reeves was offered to play Private Chris in Oliver Stone's film about the Vietnam War, Platoon. However, Keanu, being a devoted pacifist, refused the role. As a result, Charlie Sheen got the main role and the film won an Oscar in several nominations. Did Keanu regret the refusal? Who knows? He continued to actively star in television films such as Act of Vengeance and The Brotherhood of Justice, as well as in the low-budget romantic drama Flying. Let's be fair, critics were not always delighted with the game of a novice actor. But Reeves was not discouraged and continued to move towards the dream. Together with Drew Barrymore, he played in the musical Babes in Toyland. Reeves got good reviews when he appeared in the teen drama River's Edge. The guy played a schoolboy named Matt who had a dilemma: to tell the authorities about the murder of his classmate by his friend or to keep the crime a secret in the name of friendship. The film Under the Influence also received quite positive reviews. After getting a couple of cameo roles in the TV series The Tracy Ullman Show and Trying Times, Reeves appeared in the film Dangerous Liaisons. It was a chance for Keanu to show a new side of himself. The cast of the film was very good. John Malkovich, Michelle Pfeiffer, and the novice Uma Thurman took part in this project. But everyone thought that director Stephen Frears was taking a big risk by inviting to a serious role an actor who mostly played teenagers. The film Dangerous Liaisons won 3 Oscars in 1989, but Keanu unfortunately received a lot of criticism. Nevertheless, hard work bore fruit and the actor began to earn more. Now he could afford more expensive housing, but instead of spending money on amenities, he bought a motorcycle. Riding in the California hills became his passion. Keanu loved night trips when there were almost no cars on the highway and it was possible to accelerate to breakneck speed. Such adventures did not always end well. One day, he miraculously managed not to fall off a cliff. The actor spent a week in the hospital with broken ribs and a ruptured spleen. After the accident, Keanu needed to recover. That's why he lost several contracts. His sister Kim helped him get back in shape. She came to Los Angeles specifically to take care of her brother. As for the bike, despite the fact that due to his love of extreme sports, Keanu lost serious projects for almost a year. He returned to the hobby as soon as his wounds healed. And in the future, he would risk his life more than once for the sake of thrills. After returning to work, Keanu continued to play in teen films. In 1988, the comedies with his participation The Night Before and The Prince of Pennsylvania were released. The drama Permanent Record that followed them was criticized, but at the same time, many praised Keanu's acting. From time to time, Keanu played a teenager on the screen. The actor even began to worry that he would never get out of that role. Reeves was actively looking for a film that would help him change the direction of development. Still, the audience, who loved Keanu for his teenage roles, had another chance to see the actor in this role. In 1989, the cult film Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure was released. The story was made up by Ed Solomon and Chris Matheson back in 1983 in a student improvisation class. Based on the staging, they wrote the script in just 4 days, meeting in local coffee shops. It's hard to imagine anyone other than Keanu Reeves and Alex Winter starring as Bill and Ted, but initially each actor auditioned for the opposite role. However, after seeing the audition recordings, Solomon and Matheson decided to swap the actors. Initially, Bill and Ted's Time Machine was supposed to be a Chevy van, but the producers were afraid of the similarity with the DeLorean from Back to the Future and replaced the machine with a phone booth. It's strange that those guys didn't remember about another time traveler with a phone booth. Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure became a cult classic. The film performed decently at the box office, received animation, game, and comic book versions, and also a sequel. Unfortunately, not as successful as we would like it to be. And of course, Bill and Ted gave us an iconic meme. Bill! But more importantly, the film launched the career of Keanu Reeves, who even seriously was afraid that he would be remembered only for the role of Ted. That character really strongly influenced his image in the press and the reaction to his game at first. In 1989, the tragic comedy Parenthood was released. The actor played together with Diane Wiest and Steve Martin.
Chicken's burning.
Oh!
The film received rave reviews and several Oscar and Golden Globe nominations. Thanks to working with director Ron Howard, other filmmakers began to pay attention to Keanu. Life Underwater, released in the same year, could not show the same success. However, as well as the next project, the black comedy I Love You to Death, did. However, participation in the second film gave Keanu the opportunity to try himself in a non-standard role for him as a guy with not very high moral principles and a craving for drugs. In addition, thanks to the film, he met River Phoenix, who became his close friend. They bonded over a shared dream of a bright acting future and a difficult childhood. River's parents were hippies and lived very poorly. The two guys spent a lot of time together and influenced each other in many ways. River became interested in motorcycles and Keanu caught up with light drugs, which at that time were a common thing for Los Angeles. After a short break, Keanu Reeves got a role in the comedy Tune In Tomorrow, where he was on the same set with the famous Columbo, Peter Falk. Although the film was not particularly successful, Keanu, in any case, gradually was getting out of character as a schoolboy. In 1991, Gus Van Sant's independent film My Own Private Idaho was released, where Keanu played the role of the rebel Scott, who engaged in street prostitution as a protest. Gus Van Sant was inspired to create the film by Shakespeare's plays Henry IV and Henry V, as well as John Recky's novel The City of Night. The director had problems with financing due to the controversial and unusual theme of the film. He dreamed that Reeves and River Phoenix would play the main roles, but he hardly believed the actors' agents would be interested in a project that did not promise them high fees. And if Reeves got the script, then River's agent didn't even tell him about the offer. Keanu agreed unexpectedly for Van Sant. He was impressed by the story and believed that Phoenix simply had to agree to star with him. At that moment, River was spending time with his family in Florida. Without even thinking, Reeves, who was in Toronto at the time, hopped on a bike and drove thousands of miles to deliver a script to his friend. River liked the script and he agreed. Some actors and crew members settled in Van Sant's house during the preparation for the film. They were all young, cheerful, open, and creative people. Therefore, very soon, that place turned into an almost continuous house party with jam sessions every night. The music, of course, was accompanied by alcohol, as well as something heavier and more dangerous. The director did not prevent that at first. The team was shooting an independent movie, and such an atmosphere probably was getting everyone in the right mood. But at the same point, everything got out of control, and Van Sant had to move out of his own house for a while to get some sleep at least and edit the script. When the director returned, everything was ready for filming. The original script had only 70 pages, which corresponded to about a 70-minute film. Van Sant wanted the actors to complement the story with improvisation and give them full creative freedom. The director gave copies of John Recky's novel City of Night to River Phoenix and Keanu Reeves to help them get into the thinking of street dealers. Being a bookworm, Reeves read not only that novel, but also 5 other of Recky's books. As for Phoenix, he stopped reading after the first paragraph. They were different, but that was the strength of their duet. The actors really got into this project. River Phoenix even wrote his own version of the famous campfire scene, and the director agreed to shoot it. The key words that express the idea of the difference between love and sex uttered in this scene were invented by River.
What's your most lasting memory from making this movie? River Phoenix.
My Own Private Idaho received critical acclaim and was nominated for several prestigious film awards. Keanu was recognized in the world of big cinema acting in that film, although he continued to be associated more with Ted than with Scott. The next film introduced Keanu to the world of stunts, fights, and weapons. It was an action crime film, Point Break, where Reeves was back in the company of Patrick Swayze. The actor played an FBI agent who infiltrates a gang of surf robbers. It was originally planned that Patrick Swayze would play the role of Johnny Utah, but after reading the script, Patrick convinced the producers his character was Bodhi, and the role went to Keanu. Neither Patrick Swayze, nor Keanu Reeves, nor Lori Petty had ever surfed before filming. Moreover, Lori Petty had never even seen the ocean. 2 months before the start of work on the film, all 3 went to Hawaii, where they took a course in surfing. Reeves liked this kind of outdoor activity so much that it later became his hobby. In addition, to prepare for the role, Keanu Reeves watched the work of real FBI agents in Los Angeles and trained with a real football team. Interestingly, the Mythbusters later checked the authenticity of some of the events of the film. They expressed doubts about the realism of the scenes with the character of Keanu jumping without a parachute and catching Swayze. It turned out that it was possible from a physics aspect, but in that case, the guys would have been in the air for no more than 90 seconds. In the movie, they still had time to talk and even argue. Point Break was criticized immediately after its release, but had a good box office. The film really became popular a little later, and the role of Johnny Utah made Keanu a real young star. In 1992, he was recognized as the most attractive man by the MTV Movie Awards. At some point, Keanu became interested in playing the bass guitar. The actor acquired his first musical instrument at the age of 23 and had 1 single music lesson. Further learning to play the guitar was individually, by daily fingering of the strings. In 1991, he met Robert Milhouse, and together they created the rock band Dogstar. Rumor has it they met at a grocery store. Their similar hobbies led to friendship and soon to joint creativity. Night after night, they experimented with music. Keanu played bass guitar and Rob was on keyboards and drums. In 1994, vocalist and guitarist Brett Domrose joined them, and just a couple of months later, they already went on tour in America. The band has existed for almost 10 years and has released 3 albums. But back to Keanu's acting career. Thanks to the popularity that came to him after the release of Point Break, he got the opportunity to work with one of the greatest directors of all time. The idea to make another adaptation of Dracula came to the mind of actress Winona Ryder, who proposed this project to Francis Ford Coppola. She thought that the director would refuse due to employment, but when he heard the word Dracula, his eyes lit up. It was one of his favorite stories. It was Winona's wishes that had a great influence on the choice of the cast of the film. Keanu Reeves was also on the list of candidates she approved. The actor at that time starred in several films in a row and was physically exhausted. He would even turn down the role, but he couldn't miss the opportunity to work with a great director. Unfortunately, Coppola did not have mutual feelings for him. At the casting, nothing foretold troubles. Keanu showed himself well, and Winona continued to insist on his candidacy. The director agreed, but later he regretted it more than once. Coppola gathered all the actors to prepare for the film and made them read out the original novel by Bram Stoker, instead of the usual script. It took 2 days, during which Keanu was unsure of himself, was confused, and read expressionless. Probably fatigued due to the quality of Keanu's work, since many who worked with him remembered him as detached and emotionless. Later, Coppola said that he had incorrectly selected an actor for the role of Harker. He wanted the girls to fall in love with the character for his appearance, so he was looking for a young blockbuster hero. However, as a person, Coppola had no complaints about Keanu. Of all the young people I've met in the film industry, he's so endearing and sincere, and a good person, and a generous person, and I'm glad I came to know that. He's the nicest person you'll ever want to meet. The director carefully made sure that the film looked as authentic as possible. For the wedding scene of the Reeves and Ryder heroes, Coppola invited a real Romanian priest. For many years, there were talks about whether the actors were really married.
Winona says we are. Coppola says we are. So I guess we're married. Under the eyes of God.
Ryder regularly mentions this funny fact, jokingly saying that the couple has been married for almost 30 years. According to Reeves, he regularly receives messages from Ryder with the text, "Hello, husband." The film was released exactly on the 95th anniversary of the original book about Dracula. It became a box office hit and was repeatedly nominated for an Oscar, but received mixed reviews from critics. Keanu got the worst of it. Critics and viewers didn't like the actor's performance, and Reeves' attempt to do a London accent was called the worst accent in cinema. One particularly scathing review stated that Reeves had to visibly restrain himself from ending every sentence with the word dude. Keanu said that the main reason for the failure was physical exhaustion. Filming completely sucked the energy out of the actor, so he took a short vacation, part of which he spent with his friend River Phoenix. In 1993, Keanu starred as Prince Siddhartha in Bernardo Bertolucci's film Little Buddha. Reeves got the role due to his exotic appearance and the success of his previous projects. Bernardo had seen my own private Idaho and he saw me. I didn't know anything about Buddhism. When I was a kid, my mother had Chinese artifacts, so to me, Buddha was this big fat smiling guy. Part of the filming took place in Kathmandu and Bhutan. Working on the film was a real extreme adventure for Keanu. The process of shooting a film about a spiritual search was not as pleasant as Keanu thought. The entire film crew suffered from constant food poisoning and, as a result, diarrhea. However, everything has its advantages. Keanu needed to lose a lot of weight for one of the scenes, so food poisoning and an orange diet helped him in this. The film was quite good, although it did not receive any major awards. Cinematography only was noted. But Keanu was hardly worried about critics at that time. On October 31st, 1993, River Phoenix died of a drug overdose. Keanu Reeves was grieving the death of a friend. It was always difficult for him to get along with people, and River was a family and a support for him. He felt lonely and crushed. All I can say is that I have never felt a thing like that before in my life. I was very sad, and something beyond sad. I don't know what it is, just that you sob for hours. Meanwhile, Kenneth Branagh's film Much Ado About Nothing was released. Reeves became part of an excellent cast, including Emma Thompson, Denzel Washington, Kate Beckinsale, and many others. It's interesting that the filming of that film was before the filming of Little Buddha, and actor Brian Blessed taught Keanu basic meditation. That helped him prepare for the role of Buddha. The film was warmly received by critics and ranked 11th in the list of the greatest Shakespearean films on Rotten Tomatoes. In turn, Keanu added the film to the collection of his acting failures. His performance did not impress critics, and he was nominated for the Golden Raspberry Award as the Worst Supporting Actor. But this did not affect the number of offers of new roles at all. Soon, Gus Van Sant invited the actor to star in his new film Even Cowgirls Get the Blues. Keanu didn't fully understand the concept, but agreed, probably in order to reminisce about the filming with River Phoenix. The film dedicated to the deceased actor unfortunately did not repeat the success of My Own Private Idaho. The movie failed at the box office and was negatively received by critics. A series of failures changed to great success. In 1994, a movie thanks to which Keanu got to an unprecedented level was released. At first, Keanu refused to act in the film Speed. In his opinion, the script was too similar to the movie Die Hard. However, the studio hired Joss Whedon for the final version of the script. He totally changed the original concept of the main character. Now, Jack was not a desperate rebel, but a courteous, kind-hearted policeman striving to help people. In the end, Keanu agreed. Keanu immediately found a common language with a colleague in the film, Sandra Bullock. Now, they looked perfect at the trial readings. At that time, Bullock was a newcomer and Keanu felt some responsibility for his colleague. He supported her in everything and helped work on the role. Moreover, relatively recently in an interview with Ellen DeGeneres, Sandra admitted that she was in love with Keanu.
I think about how sweet Keanu Reeves was and how handsome he was. It was hard. It was really, it was hard for me to like really be serious. Like he would look at me and I'd be like,
After a while, Ellen showed that video to Keanu and he said that he liked Sandra too. Who knows if he said it to be polite or it really was, but in any case, it's impossible to deny their chemistry on the screen. Another reason why Keanu Reeves still agreed to the role was that Jan de Bont offered him to perform some tricks on his own in the film. A fan of extreme sports, Reeves could not refuse such an opportunity. As a result, Keanu got so excited that he performed 90% of the stunts without the help of stuntmen. For filming, Jan de Bont made Keanu get a short haircut. When the 20th Century Fox Film Company knew about it, the production of the movie was almost postponed. The producers were simply terrified, fearing that audiences would not recognize Reeves. Unfortunately, the filming period of Speed was overshadowed for Keanu by grief for River Phoenix. It was then that the actor knew about the tragedy. To make filming easier for Reeves, de Bont changed the shooting schedule so that the actor could work on lighter scenes. Reeves was extremely quiet and spent all his free time alone in his trailer. The film became a real box office hit, and Keanu received a fee of $1.2 million for his work. The action movie was included in the list of the 100 most spectacular films of the 20th century. Keanu finally got on the A-list, a list of actors with the highest fees. After the success of Speed, Fox Studio wanted to shoot a sequel, but Reeves flatly refused to participate in it. This act seemed to be utter madness. However, later, Reeves' decision turned out to be correct. The sequel of 1997 failed miserably at the box office, besides receiving the Golden Raspberry for the worst sequel. Meanwhile, Reeves starred in the cyberpunk movie Johnny Mnemonic. Keanu was a fan of William Gibson, the author of the story of the same name. The script of this film was written on the basis of this story, so the actor gladly agreed to play the main role. The director of the project, Robert Longo, was actually a famous artist. Before Mnemonic, he shot only a couple of clips as a hobby. But one day, he had Gibson's story, and the artist suggested the author make a film based on his work. Gibson agreed and even volunteered to write a script for a future movie on his own. Initially, the film was conceived as a psychological drama for which the authors could not find funding for a long time. In the end, they were able to negotiate with Sony Pictures but soon regretted it. The film was in development for a long time. During that time, Keanu Reeves was able to become a Hollywood star. Sony Pictures decided to turn a cozy art house black and white film into a summer blockbuster, seeing the success of Speed. Later, Robert Longo admitted that the final version turned out to be only 65% of what he wanted to do. Over the years, Johnny Mnemonic gained the status of a cult work, but when the film was released, it could not even recoup the production costs. In addition, Reeves' acting work wasn't appreciated by everyone. In 1996, he was even nominated for the Golden Raspberry for that role. But neither that nor the box office failure of the film had any effect on the actor's career. Keanu's next work was a melodrama, A Walk in the Clouds. Now it is loved by many viewers. Paradoxically, Reeves received another nomination for the Golden Raspberry Anti Award in the category Worst Actor for his role in that film. At the same time, he was nominated for the Most Desirable Man at the MTV Movie Awards. Critics were not thrilled with Chain Reaction, released a year later. The film earned only $10 million more than was spent on its production. It was a very disappointing result, given the conditions in which the film had to be shot. The actors and crew had a tough time due to the record cold winter on the Great Lakes and filming in bad weather. And guess what anti-award Keanu was nominated for such suffering again? In the same year, the crime comedy Feeling Minnesota was released. The newcomer Cameron Diaz was Reeves' partner. According to Keanu, he smoked so often on the set that he eventually became addicted to cigarettes in real life. The film, like its predecessors, was not successful. Reeves was much more lucky on the theater stage during that period. In 1995, he played Prince Hamlet at the Manitoba Theatre Centre in Winnipeg. The reviews for his acting were excellent. According to critics, Reeves was able to make the image of the prince fresh, lively, and even spontaneous. Nevertheless, it began to seem that Keanu Reeves did everything out of himself in the field of cinema, and it was not worth expecting new successful films from him. However, they hurriedly wrote him off. Working on the next project was not easy for Keanu, but the role he performed is considered one of the best in his career. Of course, we're talking about Kevin Lomax in the cult classic The Devil's Advocate. Initially, they were going to make a big, epic blockbuster out of the film with the devil lightning from the eyes, explosions, and so on. But all serious actors refused to participate in such a project, including Al Pacino. The script was rewrote several times, completely changing the concept. In the beginning, the candidates for the main role were Brad Pitt, John Cusack, and Edward Norton, but everyone refused in favor of other projects. Then the producers drew their attention to Keanu. Reeves was incredibly pleased to have the opportunity to work on such an interesting project, and when he found out that Al Pacino could be his partner, he agreed to a lower fee so that the producers could pay the price requested by the great actor. The new version of the script was really able to please Al Pacino, and after 5 refusals, he still told the producers the cherished yes. When Al Pacino found out that Keanu had donated part of his fee to him, he gave the same amount to charity. Malicious tongues said that Pacino did not like the level of Reeves' acting. Keanu said that Pacino from time to time seemed to test his limits. He played each take in a different way, as if he wanted to understand whether his partner would be able to improvise and give his character something new. But according to the director, the actors did not compete, but supported each other.
Those were some good days, and it's such a wonderful performance from Mr. Pacino. Who you carrying those bricks for, Kevin? God? Anyway.
Preparing for the role, the actor spent a lot of time with various lawyers in New York. He also read many articles and excerpts about famous lawsuits. The film, which is now considered a cult classic, at first did not receive rave reviews. Critics called it more interesting than brilliant, and the website Rotten Tomatoes gave the film an approval rating of 63%. And yet, The Devil's Advocate was awarded the Saturn Award in the category for Best Horror Film. After the release of the film, the media began to talk about a possible romance between Keanu and Charlize Theron. The actors often appeared together, but in fact, they were just good friends. Keanu Reeves' personal life was always a well-kept secret. For a long time, many considered him gay. They said that he had an affair with the famous media magnate David Geffen. The rumors were not confirmed. Although the actor was earning millions, he continued to live in hotels. He didn't see any point in buying his own house. Reeves spent most of his royalties on charity, as well as helping his sisters and mother. He saved a lot of money, except on motorcycles. Keanu still loves speed and risk, and of course, he got into accidents. Old injuries almost denied him the opportunity to participate in a new, very interesting, and physically challenging project. During the preparation, Keanu felt a pain in his neck. The test showed a displacement of cervical vertebrae. which could soon turn into serious health problems. He had to have an urgent operation, but fortunately, Reeves managed to convince the producers of the project to understand his situation and not fire him. A month after the spinal surgery, Reeves went to prepare for filming in a fateful film. In order to attract viewers to the film by almost unknown directors Larry and Andy Wachowski, at that time, the Warner Brothers studio was going to take some bright star to the role of the One. Brad Pitt, Ewan McGregor, Tom Cruise, Leonardo DiCaprio, and many others were considered, but they all refused for various reasons. For example, DiCaprio was afraid that too many special effects would kill his acting, and Nicolas Cage did not want to leave for filming in Australia. For a long time, the main candidate was Will Smith, but he refused the project because at that time he did not consider himself a mature enough actor for such a serious role, although Will was delighted with the script and was sure that it would be a great project. That's the role Keanu was born to play. When I watch the movie and I see the choices he made, there are 100 occasions when I think I would have messed that up. Then the choice was between Johnny Depp and Keanu Reeves. The latter expressed the strongest interest in the film after reading the script and showed himself great at the auditions. Why did I choose The Matrix? First of all, because of the script, because of how the characters spoke and what they said. I liked both the dialogues and the idea as a whole. I was just amazed. Keanu was interested in science fiction and philosophy, and at the request work of scientist Dylan Evans on evolutionary psychology and Baudrillard's collection of essays, Simulacra and Simulation before filming. The Wachowskis realized that at least in part of the script, they and Reeves were on the same page. And when the actor agreed to months of training, the studio, along with the Wachowskis, after prolonged persuasion, the famous Chinese director of action films, Yuen Wu-ping, commenced to teach the actors to fight. Others fight as if they know how to do it for half their lives.
I know Kung Fu.
Show me.
In addition to the fact that the preparatory course itself was exhausting, it was even more difficult for Keanu than for the others, since the actor was just beginning to recover from an earlier injury. The film crew arrived in Sydney in March of 1998. Everyone was in high spirits, but suddenly a new problem appeared. Reeves was informed that his spine had not fused. The actor couldn't fight for a while, and the Wachowskis had to rearrange the shooting schedule in such a way that he could first shoot simpler scenes and leave the fights and other action for later. One of the most difficult scenes was the one in which Morpheus and Neo arranged a training duel. Lawrence Fishburne and Keanu Reeves rehearsed the whole fight for a month before the start of filming. And although the actors were already moving synchronously and knew where and how to improvise, it was still very difficult to shoot the fight.
Fake fights are fun.
Yuen Wu-ping greatly praised Keanu Reeves' desire to bring everything to perfection. The actor also wanted to do everything flawlessly when shooting the previous scenes, but here his perseverance reached its peak. Because of the injury, he badly rehearsed a triple kick and made mistakes in his movements, take after take, but he did not want to stop shooting. As a result, it took 21 takes to film this trick. When I watched this self-torture, I got goosebumps. It was very painful to follow this. On the set, everyone was amazed at how Reeves rushed into battle, forgetting about moral and physical fatigue. Even the most difficult part was the scene of the duel between Neo and Agent Smith in the subway. All its participants remember it was the most difficult scene they have ever had to shoot in their lives. It was necessary not only to fight, but also to actively use the support cables that help to perform tricks. The choreography of the fights was honed as never before, but the situation was complicated by the fact that there were no stuntmen here. Keanu Reeves and Hugo Weaving did all the work themselves. It took a huge number of takes before it turned out exactly what was needed, and as a result, the entire episode was filmed 10 days longer than planned. By the end of the work, everyone was completely exhausted. The sacrifices for the role did not end there. The last episode of Neo's release from The Matrix was filmed. It's the episode in which he wakes up for the first time in a capsule filled with a transparent liquid. For this episode, the actor completely shaved off his hair and eyebrows and could safely grow them after filming without delaying the workflow. Despite the difficult shooting, the working on the film is remembered fondly by the actors. This is the best film I've ever been involved in my entire career. The atmosphere on the set was just amazing. We were a nice company of best friends who enjoyed every second spent together on the set. Every common good fortune, big and small, who believed from the very beginning that this would be a wonderful film. The Matrix was released on March 31st, 1999 in the USA. Neither the producers nor the actors nor other members of the crew had any idea that the film could turn out so good. Even Reeves, who had been filming for a long time and knew what fame was, had no idea that it was possible to be so imbued with the film and its characters. He was surprised that people go to The Matrix 3 or 10 times while his email box was overflowing with letters. And then they tell you that people start dressing up like the characters in the movie. Honestly, I didn't expect this. The creators began filming the sequel 2 years after the premiere. And if you want to learn even more interesting things about The Matrix, click here. What made this film a cult one? What references did only 7% of the audience notice in it? The answers to all these questions are here. Follow the link and watch. And that's it for today. It was The Biographer. See you soon. Bye-bye.